Hey guys, I'm Rich from NeoWin, and today we're unboxing the Dell XPS 9310. So, the 9300 was the one that was announced at CES this year. Or actually, was it before? No, it was definitely CES. Sorry, they've probably, in the last maybe 16 months, this is the third XPS 13. There was one around IFA. It was the first to use Intel's Comet Lake processors, which were 10th gen. And then at CES, they did Ice Lake. Because remember, their Ice Lake debut was the XPS 13, 2-in-1. It's a little confusing, I know. Right? So this was the one that was introduced at CES, was the 9300. So this was the all-new design. You know, that's the one where they, not only is the webcam above the display, but there's an IR camera now. They chopped down the chin. And we saw that design mature a little bit when the new XPS 15 and the brand new XPS 17 came out later in the year. Now we have that similar design across the whole lineup. It's beautiful. It's the smallest footprint of the XPS family ever, right? And 16 by 10 display now instead of 16 by 9, which is something that they had on the 2-in-1. Awesome stuff. I loved it. I think everybody that reviewed it loved it. So now we got the 9310. What's new? Not much. It's Intel Tiger Lake. That's what's new. What's not new is any changes in the chassis at all. This is a spec bump. In fact, this is a very similar video to the one that I made last year about the Comet Lake XPS 13 because that was just a spec bump too. These things happen, but and that's not a bad thing. You're not, like the design is brand new. It's just you don't see spec bumps as much in reviews so much from other companies because a lot of companies don't seed those review units. They only do it when they have a big change. So but Tiger Lake is something of a big change. It's an even bigger change for business laptops that were running Comet Lake last year. But we got new graphics. That's the Iris Xe. Or Iris Z. Everybody's calling it XE. I think it should be called Z. It just makes more sense to me. But anyway, this one's got a Core i7 1165G7. So it's and the full HD display. So it is directly comparable to the unit that I reviewed last year with the 1065G7. So let's get this out of the box. All right. As you can see, it's a very small box because it's a very small PC. One of the selling points of the XPS 13 is, in fact, that it's a 13-inch laptop that fits inside of an 11-inch chassis. Now, that's not the best comparison, in my opinion. It used to be. And that's the thing. Dell started doing these tremendously narrow bezel PCs, a few years ago. Back when bezels were much bigger. So now, when you say a 13-inch PC in an 11-inch chassis, or a 15-inch PC in a 13-inch chassis, or a 17-inch PC in a 15-inch chassis, you're really saying compared to a PC from 3 to 5 years ago. And that's fine because that's probably what you're upgrading from. But let's be fair there. All right, so let's get this out of the box, and here we have it. That is the new XPS 13. This is the clamshell model. And that, like I said, they do make a 2-in-1. It's a convertible. And it looks very similar because they're going for that same design across the lineup. And let me tell you, their design was kind of fragmented for a while because they kept making these little changes here and there. It was very strange because Dell used to get made fun of a lot for having the webcam below the display. HP used to make fun of them every chance they get. They called it the nostril cam. So one year they added an IR camera to that. And so you had a webcam and an IR camera below the screen. The next year, they announced, we finally made a webcam small enough to fit in our tiny top bezel. But we didn't make an IR camera small enough. So they introduced the IR camera, went away the next year. But they don't announce all 4 models at once. So these design changes were coming in certain parts of the lineup and then not showing up in others. So you had the webcam in the top with no Windows Hello on the XPS 13. And then on the 2-in-1, you had it on the bottom with Windows Hello. Stuff like that. But and then the next year they added the IR camera. So now, starting with last year's XPS 13 9300, kind of starting with the XPS 13 2-in-1, but there was still a few things that didn't meet this new design. But anyway, starting with the XPS 13 9300, they had this design that they're set on. The webcam is in the top bezel with the IR camera, tiny bottom bezel. And the XPS 13 2-in-1 this year actually does have some design changes over last year, because in that now we kind of have that finalized design. So also in the box is a white power cable and a white power brick. This is something that's very cool from Dell. I don't know that anybody really... Well, you know what? I've seen it a little more lately, that companies are kind of focusing on the style of the power brick. It used to just be obviously that square, rectangular brick that just, something that's kind of out of sight. But, the white matches the style of the machine, right? Because we've got the... Oh, just kind of opened that right on my skin right there. So, so this is the woven glass fiber white palm rest. It's really nice. Also in the box, we've got a couple... Oh, this is a power adapter in case you don't want to use that big cable and you want something a little shorter. Doesn't get in the way. And then we've also got a USB Type-C to Type A adapter. So let me tell you something about Tiger Lake before we move on, because it's not just about Iris Xe graphics. I'm totally putting this back in the box wrong. It's not just about Iris Xe graphics, because there's also faster memory, and there's Thunderbolt 4. So let me tell you about Thunderbolt 4. Thunderbolt 4 can handle up to 2 4K displays on a single port. 40 gigabit per second data transfer speeds. Does that sound familiar to you? It should, because Thunderbolt 3 was the same thing. So, what's different about Thunderbolt 4 is that now this is the minimum spec. And if you read my reviews, you've read it time and time again, also with the most recent Dell PCs, where because they all have Thunderbolt 3 ports, and then I would go to run 2 4K displays on it, and I could only get one to run at 4K. And that's because that's the minimum Thunderbolt 3 spec. So, we had this thing for Thunderbolt 3 for a while where it's some of them, of what we would call full Thunderbolt 3 ports. That would be the ones where you could run 2 4K displays off of. And I would try to run 2 4K displays off of it. And either it worked or it didn't. And so some companies were really good at full Thunderbolt 3 support. Some were not. But now with Thunderbolt 4, everybody is doing it because it's the minimum spec now. So like I said, this does come with the white glass woven glass fiber, whatever it's called, palm rest on it. You can still get the black carbon fiber. That was the more traditional XPS colors is the sort of silver on the outside and the black on the inside. And what we're seeing on all models now is the silver sort of brushed aluminum look on the sides, where that used to be black as well when we had those more traditional colors. Over here, we do have USB Type-C. Both of the USB Type-C ports that you see here are Thunderbolt 4, which is nice. Like you saw over there, micro USB. And then, of course, we've got a 3.5 millimeter audio jack over here, which is quite nice. I appreciate charging on either side of it. By the way, the outside of this, I believe the color is Arctic or Arctic white. The other color, which I would describe as more of a grayish silver, is actually called platinum silver, and it's not my favorite. This is honestly my favorite. I think it's definitely the nicest. And what's cool is that actually the XPS 15 is available in this style now too. You can see the sticker Intel Evo. That's Intel's newest program, which basically means that it's a modern PC. It's like their Ultrabook program, which became Project Athena, and it just means that it boots up in a certain amount of time, it gets a certain amount of battery life, and all that good stuff. It's a modern PC, it's lightweight, it does all the good stuff. Let's take a look at the beautiful, beautiful screen. So, this one comes in at 13.4 inches, 16 by 10. So that's actually much bigger than we had before when it was 16 by 9. Because remember, these screens are measured diagonally. So 13.3 inches at 16 by 9 is probably a little bit wider, but this is much taller because it's going this way. So you actually have a fairly larger surface area on the screen. Very little bezels, as you can see. I would call it almost a neck cramp PC, especially if you keep the PC close to you because you're looking down at that screen, But I like to use it with external monitors, and this certainly has the power to do it because remember, we have Iris Xe graphics. So it's actually, I gotta say, I was super impressed last year with Intel Ice Lake and their Iris Plus graphics that they had in their higher end SKUs. So, Iris Xe is something that I'm pumped to check. Well, I'll be honest with you. I did check it out in one PC. I wasn't allowed to run benchmarks on that particular PC, but I did play some games because that was one of the things that they promised with Iris Xe was the ability to play full HD games. So I'm going to check that on this PC too, but check it out. Check out how thin and how light this thing is. It weighs in at 2.8 pounds on the touchscreen model, 2.64 for non-touch. Is this touch? It is touch. So 2.8 pounds. And imagine that as a gaming PC. Obviously it's kind of a stretch, right? To call it a gaming PC. A gaming PC you can actually do a lot more powerful things on. But you can edit video on this. You can play full HD games. You can't play 4K games. And you might even struggle with full HD gaming if you're connected to 2 4K monitors. Or you could honestly connect to 4 4K monitors with 2 on each port if you want. But it's cool stuff, and Intel is doing good stuff for Ultrabooks and just PCs without any kind of dedicated graphics. It's so easy to just lift this with one hand, and to know what kind of power is under the hood is really impressive. Yeah, so this is my first, let's say, full-on Tiger Lake PC, and that is the 11th generation of Intel processors. So there's more graphics power, there's Thunderbolt 4, there's faster memory, lots of good stuff. It's got PCI 4 support, which doesn't matter so much. You're not adding on peripherals like you would on a desktop PC, but that's something that's going to be important for 10th gen desktop chips. But yeah, good stuff. And this is my first one that I can actually push as far as I want. The last one, it was okay, this is pre-production and don't run benchmarks on it. Don't do this, don't do that. Don't speculate what you think the benchmark score would be. Stuff like that, So now this is the first production Tiger Lake machine that I've gotten my hands on, and it's going to be pretty cool. So stay tuned. I'm Rich from NeoWin. Have a great night.